Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. We're doing another round of Modern today. Right now we have Izzet Murktide versus Grixis Death Shadow. Justin Ryan is playing Izzet Murktide. Kevin Good is playing Grixis Shadow. Interestingly enough, I have it swapped around. So Kevin is on the left, Justin is on the right. That'll get corrected eventually. Kevin's going to bobble himself, see if we get something good here. And apparently not. We're just going to fetch it away. I like both of these decks a lot. Now, this is from our Modern 1K that we did on Saturday, December 18th. That means we have deck lists that they are in front of me. So we can take a look at what they're boarding and talk about the matchup and talk about interesting inclusions that they might have in their deck. Like Justin has Void Mirror. I don't know if that's like a staple thing now. I've seen a couple people do it. You know, I've seen it happen a couple times. I don't know why at this point I didn't realize that I had reversed. I think I was still setting up the stream. This was round one of our tournament. Both of these players play these decks a good bit. I know Justin top eighted our Wilmington Shop Championships with Izzet Murktide. Actually, I think he made top 4. And then Kevin has played a good amount of Grixis Shadow.
Go ahead.
All right, we got a very back and forth game of just play a thing pass. Now what I want to check, so recently there has been a adaptation of the Grixis deck that doesn't play Death Shadow anymore. I'm curious if that's the case with Kevin. So let's check it out. Nope, he had 4 copies in his list, which I think is correct. I know some people were playing like the Grixis like no win condition deck without like Shadow, or just Grixis like Darcy shenanigans, and I think Shadow adds a reasonable clock because they're still playing Dress Down in that deck, and why not just have a 1-mana 13/13 combined with Dress Down? Like that interaction is so strong and does so many things for the deck, while also just being an obnoxious card. Like Dress Down is absurd. I'm not salty. Alright, so deciding to not play the Expressive Iteration. It's a little interesting here. I guess he wants to hold up a counterspell or a form of removal, but I think in that situation, I Iteration here to try and find a 3rd land. At least once you dig deeper into your deck. I mean, hopefully you don't miss, but like, it's a common turn 3 play, right? With any of the red-blue decks is Expressive on 3. But, I mean, maybe he's just afraid of a Ragabane getting in there and wants to drown it. If Justin dashes it out.
Tap upkeep draw.
So we have Kevin at 14, Justin at 19.
Fiery Islet.
Got a Fiery Islet, and saying go. It looks like neither player wants to be the first person to commit to something. Alright, so Kevin's list looks pretty stock. If you went to MTG Goldfish and looked up Death Shadow, Grixis Shadow, this is probably what you would get. Yep, 2 Dress Down the main, 1 in the sideboard. There's the Expressive Iteration. Probably going to eat.
Crack target you. Cool.
Looks like we cracked a bubble. While looking at the deck list, missed an entire turn sequence. I'm assuming the iteration came down and got countered. And then Justin played a bubble and cracked the bubble. Alright, we're gonna fetch again. I imagine how have I not recognized that they're backwards at this point? Good lord. The funny part is, like, it would make sense for me to do this, or do it the way I did, because of the way the 180 rule works. If you're not familiar, when in doing filmmaking or any type of videography, there is a 360-degree circle that comes that your shots are supposed to be in. Now, if you choose to be on one side of that 360-degree circle, like on one half, the 180 line. If you switch perspectives, it can be confusing for the viewer. we're going to see an Unholy Heat on the Darcy here, and we're going to go into a Drown in the Lock. And I imagine we're just going to Counterspell War over that, right? Going to Surveil Mountain into the graveyard.
Counterspell the ground.
Ooh. We got those nice counterspells too. I enjoy the artwork on that counterspell a lot. He's just kind of silly looking.
Thank you.
Yes. So what you were seeing now is one perspective of the 180 line. Or 180. Yeah. You're on the left side. I sit on the right side when I do the stream, so my perspective is swapped, which is probably why I messed up there. But because Kevin is on the right side of the table and Justin was on the left. So we're going to see Kirksa come down. Let's see what Justin discards here. I'm really glad Kirksa, like, obviously not as powerful as Uro, but I'm really glad it is still a strong card that's played in the format. Even if it's just a 2-of and like decks aren't built around it, it's still pretty solid. So here comes Death Shadow. We got a 2/2. Could we see an Unholy Heat just to rip it off the board? Are you heating it or bolting it when your opponent has 2 cards left in hand? It's probably not that bad. I don't think you would risk him having protection for it. Alright, so we're just going to flash in a Brazen Borrow. Okay. Now, I wonder, is Justin just playing a 4/4 spot of Bolt and Heat? Playing 4 Bolt, 3 Unholy Heat. Okay. Now, it looks like he's more on the control variant of the Murktide deck.
Exile.
So we got 4 counterspells, 2 Archmage's Charms, 2 Force of Negation in the main board. I know those are all cards the deck has played before. I feel like the Forces haven't moved to the sideboard for a while. But it definitely becomes much more controlling after you get to the sideboard. 3 copies of Flusterstorm, 2 copies of Jace the Mind Sculptor, which I really like as an addition to the Murktide strategy. Speaking of Murktide.
We're going to go full 8/8.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. It makes sense, right? Like, you use a tempo deck in game 1, and then games 2 and 3, like, you just pivot into a control shell that still has a potential 2-mana 8/8. Why not? There's the Darcy, aka Chump Blocker, probably for the Murktide Regent.
End step I will fetch.
If I recall, I believe we had 30 people in this tournament. We did 5 rounds of Swiss with a top 8 cut, and we will be giving you all 5 rounds. And that top 8 cut, I believe they split in the finals, so we don't have the finals matchup, but we do have everything else. And barring anything being randomly unusable, we should be able to post all of it, which will be great.
Sack Islet to draw a card.
Well, with the red green that happened to be floating, I'm sorry.
Okay, cool. The switch has happened. I think Justin is reasonably okay to race Kevin here, just by attacking out.
Combat?
Because if he hits for 8, yeah, I think you attack out here. Darcy probably blocks to Murktide. Kevin takes 3, goes to 8.
Okay.
He then has a 5/5. If he attacks the 5/5, Justin goes to 10. The only thing Justin would have to worry about is Kevin having both dress downs in hand. Which, if that's the case, like, he's just gonna win more often than not, anyways, right? Ooh, have the Delirium on Holy Heat for the Murktide Regent.
Hardcast Force.
Hardcast Force of Negation, nice.
Yep.
They took the dice off because I thought it was dying. That's fun. I don't know what I can't see Kevin's hand. He's got a blue card. I don't think it's dressed down though. Yeah, the problem is he would need dress down plus Darcy to survive the next turn. Alright folks, this will be Justin taking game 1 with Izzet Murktide against Grixis Shadow. We'll be right back after they finish sideboarding for game 2. And we are back with game 2. We have Kevin on the play, leading off with the Scalding Tarn. I'm not terribly sure what either player really brings in here. I think Justin swaps into the control package by sliding the Jaces in. And then probably the Fluster. The Fluster's probably not that important. I think I would just put the Jace in. And then Kevin. So we have a Laris of the Dream Den, 2 Alpine Moon, 2 Soul Guide Lantern, 2 Collective Brutality, 1 Dress Down, 2 Spell Pierce, 2 Torok Dread Cantor, 2... Terminate? Let's say it's Terminate. And then 1 copy of Call Goods Command. I think you just bring in the creature removal for Murktide, right?
Yeah.
Alright, so we're gonna fetch Shock Thoughtseize. Rip a card from his hand.
Good to go. Yep. Go to 18
We're gonna go 18. Play Dragon's Rage Channeler.
Yep.
I don't know why the Grixis deck isn't, or the Shadow deck isn't sideboarding Surgical Extraction. I mean, you're a Thoughtseize deck. And Surgical costs 2 life, right? Like, it does the thing you want it to do.
Yep.
Now we're gonna Unholy Heat the Darcy. And then are we gonna take another, oh, play a 1/1. There we go. A 1/1 that can very quickly get out of hand.
Go ahead.
Justin unfortunately only has 1 land in hand.
Combat. Yep.
Alright, shock down. He's gonna attack in for 3. Put Justin to 15.
Yeah. Ragavan.
Play Laris, play Rags. Do we have Laris plus removal spell? Counterspell, Brazen Borrower, Blood Moon, Spell Pierce, and Flusterstorm. Okay.
Take Brazen Borrower. Yeah. You're at 8.
I'll replay that Bauble.
Yep.
The Laris engine with Bauble is so good, man. Like, it never really feels bad. Once you get Lurrus online,
I'm at 9.
and if it gets to stay, it's so good.
Yep. Yeah, we'll heat the Lurrus. Combat. Shoot. Yeah. Your top
This
card.
is when he hits a Death Shadow. It's a Soul Guide Lantern. It's not terrible. There are definitely worse hits in the deck.
And go ahead.
You're at 9.
I'm at 9.
I'm at 6. Red shot kill you.
Yeah, you got it.
Alright, and that'll be... that'll give him the ability to fetch shock. And increase the Death Shadow's power toughness. Or, I guess reduce the -1/-1 counters on it to make it lethal. So Kevin's going to take game 2, and then we'll be right back for game 3. Alright folks, we're back with game 3. We have Justin on the play here. He's going to shotgun that Steam Vents and play a Ragavan. Seems like a pretty good play in a couple different formats right now. Kevin also has some removal spells in hand though. So I see that Terminate. Fetch. Obviously he can't terminate this turn, but he probably has a Heat or a Bolt or something. Or he could have a Ragavan of his own. Nothing quite blocks a Ragavan like a Ragavan. Or a couple other things, like an Arboreal Grazer. Cool. There's an Unholy Heat. It's going to kill the monkey. This is not a format where Daze is legal, so you don't have to worry about that.
Shotgun vents. I'll be at 16.
I love the Torok Dread Cantor in the sideboard of Grixis. I think sometimes it should be in the main. Just because, like, it's a very good card. And white is pretty prevalent right now. There is a lot of Solitude in the format. There's a lot of Prismatic Ending in the format. Having protection from or those two cards right now, pretty solid, man. Plus, like, there's like random interactions where it's really good. If you're playing against Titan and they Teleria West, that's discarding a card, so your Torok gets bigger. Alright, there's a Thought Seize. I'm just going to counterspell it.
Counterspell?
I'm going to fetch a Steam Vents here. Oh, it's going to pass. Okay. A little surprised we didn't play out the Ragavan, but I guess maybe just assuming that Justin has an interaction.
Islet.
You know what the darndest thing I heard this week was? Somebody said to me that they wish Stifle was legal in Modern, and I don't know if they do. Stifle seems like it just wouldn't be okay, right? Like that'd be very punishing. It's not like Legacy where people would probably just not play it very often anymore. I think people would play Stifle in Modern if you could just turn off a fetch land. You paid a life. Nope. Be sad. Alright, fetching out of Swamp. Probably getting ready to expect a Blood Moon. I think once Murktide fetches the island, or an island or two, is when you should expect the Blood Moon to come out. Very rarely are they going to slam it without any blue sources, but it's possible.
Yep.
Speaking of wild cards that could probably not be Modern legal, what cards would you guys like to see in the format? Or cards would you like to not see in the format? Like, I don't know, Crop Rotation or Force of Will, even. Alright, we're going to play Darcy and dash out a Ragavan.
Yeah. Bolt. Surveil trigger.
I'm just gonna bolt it. Surveil trigger.
Oh, there's one here. Consider. Do you have delirium yet?
Yeah. Land, instant, sorcery, creature.
Yep.
We're deliberating. What are we thinking on? Are we thinking on maybe buying, cashing in that fire islet?
Go ahead.
Alright, decides to pass. Doesn't have delirium active yet. I'm pretty sure Kevin does. Which is like the awkward spot to be in when you're in a Darcy Mirror. Like when one person has it and you don't. Okay, he's gonna bolt. That's a real trigger.
Your turn.
Bubble. Surveil trigger.
Yeah.
Cast Mission Ball. We'll get that Surveil trigger. That interaction's also just so good. I was playing Grixis Shadow the other day with my coworker, and man, it's a fun deck. If you're looking for like good interactive Magic decks, that's the one. It is extremely fun to play and very satisfying to win with too. There's a lot of like random things the deck can do. This is
Are you
fun,
fetching that
man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Putting a Lurrus on the board, playing a Death Shadow from the graveyard, dashing a Ragavan from the graveyard, then it goes back to your hand at the end of the turn. So you just basically draw a card and they get a Ragavan attack. It's pretty good. Murktide's also really fun too. Murktide was like my recommendation for people if they wanted to like buy into the format at like an okay price. It's not the greatest, but I mean any deck that plays 4 Ragavans is gonna be a nightmare to like raw pick up. If you don't have like Steam Bands or any of that stuff, it's a good amount of money you gotta put into it, but
Your turn.
But Channeler, Brazen Borrower, Borrower some money. Channeler, Consider, Bolts really aren't worth anything anymore. Spell Pierce and Holy Heat, Counterspell, Expressive. Bauble some money. And then like the land base isn't terrible. The worst part is like you have to buy Polluted Deltas, but I mean you could realistically play any blue fetch in that spot. And then you play for Scalding Tarn. But like Tarn's the lowest it's probably ever been, and probably ever will be. So barring like a current standard set reprint. Like your big money cards are gonna be Ragavan, Murktide,
9.
Force of Negation. Those are like, and then the Mind Sculptors in the sideboard. Those are like the big expensive cards, and then there's like some medium end stuff. Alright, see, we have the island. So here comes the Blood Moon. I'm gonna fetch. Kevin doesn't have a blue source. That's like the worst feeling when you're playing Grixis. Because the deck doesn't play an island, to my understanding. Or to what, yeah, no, it doesn't play like an island. It just plays Swamp and a Mountain. Because technically, like, you don't need it. We're gonna cycle a Dress Down in response to the Blood Moon.
Okay.
I don't know if
Go ahead.
that'll help with the hand configuration that Kevin has. I don't think Kevin's in the greatest spots right now. He has the immediate answer to the Dragon's Rage Channeler, but he can't play Lurrus anymore. Don't know if there's anything in the deck that removes that Blood Moon. Does Collective Brutality blow up an enchantment? Let's see. Collective Brutality. I always forget like all of the modes on this card. Yep. Discard. No, it does not. Just gonna terminate the Darcy.
Darcy?
Here comes another one.
Yep.
On a side note, Kevin rocking those 2019 Halloween sleeves that are gorgeous. I really do like the sleeves a lot. The positioning of the dragon is a little weird in my opinion, but like, it's fine. I mean, I guess the argument is that your opponent's looking at it, that the dragon's coming for you.
Yep.
So here's a 5/5 Death Shadow for 1 mana. Card's kind of wild, man. Just from like a design perspective, it's really cool. I like it a lot, but it's just so weird.
5/5 right now.
Say, all right, here's a 1 mana 5/5. Here's a 1 mana 10/10.
Combat? 3? Go ahead.
Just debating if he wants to give his if he wants to give the Death Shadow 3 more power and toughness. Originally forget, but I think his hand's still primarily blue cards. He can attack in here for 8, put Justin to 5.
Yep.
If he has double bolt, he's dead. Barring like counterspell related shenanigans, but
Consider. Surveil trigger first.
yeah, Surveil trigger and the Consider trigger.
Resolve this.
Consider's a nice addition to the deck. It's so interesting. Basically, hit the Surveil twice and then draw a card. It's cool.
Rough turn. Dash Ragavan.
Gonna dash a Ragavan, and that's gonna be lethal. Alright, folks. Justin Ryan's gonna take it 2-1 with Izzet Murktide against Kevin Goods and Grixis Shadow. Thanks for watching, and we'll have more content coming up if you haven't seen it already.